Hey everyone, I'm Gevin,
And I'm Dave.
and welcome to episode 8 of Lowlights. So we've got a very special episode for you guys this week. We'd like to think every week's episode is special, but we're going to be talking to college basketball standout Rashad King from LSU. But before we talk to him, let's get into this week's highlights, shall we, Dave?
Let's do it.
All right. So where else would we start but the NBA? It's the NBA Finals, almost NBA playoffs time. We got two great series brewing. In the East, we got the Pacers and the Knicks. In the West, we got the Thunder and the Timberwolves. They're all duking it out for their spots in the actual NBA Finals. I think the biggest storyline has been the fact that in both of these series, we had the Pacers take a 2-0 start. The Thunder take a 2-0 start as well out in the West. But the Knicks and the Timberwolves both came back to take, their respective game three. And, I think of all the amazing games that have been played so far in this round, I think we got to talk a little bit about this game right here. Now, if you're listening on Spotify, you can't see what I'm doing, but this is a nod to what Tyrese Halliburton did at the end of game one, Knicks Pacers, right after he drained his 2-point buzzer beater to send that game to overtime, paying tribute to the great Pacers great Reggie Miller in the process.
Who
Now,
was in the
Dave,
building?
I know that's right, who was in the building, which I think is pretty cool. I know you probably had some mixed emotions, but probably pretty happy, especially after what the Knicks did to your Celtics the round before. I know we were texting back and forth during that game. It was exciting to watch, just like as sports fans.
Yeah, I mean, Gavin, I was excited for two reasons. Number one, I'm always happy to root against New York sports. So, particularly after my Celtics got devastated by injuries and the Knicks fans, were celebrating hard. It felt pretty good to see the Knicks all of a sudden be the team that blew a 20-point lead at home, and that shot was insane. That shot was, that Halliburton shot is like that instant classic. Okay, that's number one. Just great basketball.
Did you realize it wasn't a three, by the way, in the moment?
No, in the moment I thought it was a three, and then
you thought it was a three. Okay, I think most people did. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I was celebrating.
Yeah.
And then and then they show the replay and
he was like,
yes, his foot was on the line.
It was like exactly.
His toe was on the line, which like always is kind of like he deserves.
Yeah.
He deserves. Yeah. I mean, the rule makes sense, but anyway.
Yeah.
The second reason I was excited is because before the series started, the Knicks were favored, and not just because I'm a hater, but I think that this Pacers team is really good. And so I went on FanDuel to just check what the odds were, and the Pacers were huge underdogs to win the finals at that point.
Totally, yeah.
And so they were plus 1,200 to beat the Thunder in the finals and plus 1,600 to beat the Wolves in the finals. And so what that means is if you put $10, let's say, on them to beat the Thunder at plus 1,200, $10 means you could win $120. Huge payout. So I on the odds. So I was like, oh, great. So I did a little bit of that and put a little bit on the Pacers. And so if they win and end up advancing, I think I might like hedge, meaning in other words, I'll bet half that amount on the that I would win on the West team, the Thunder or the Wolves, so that I'll guarantee myself half of those winnings, right? Like I'll instead of just like riding it and taking the risk that I could either win that huge bet or lose everything. I mean, not lose all that much, but just lose my little bet. I would get to the best of both worlds. So then no matter who wins, I win. But anyway, so that's the NBA. And I know we want to get into the WNBA a little bit. And the WNBA season just started with the Caitlin Clark triple-double, and it's a super exciting season. And I think for me, it's interesting to watch this because the first speech that I ever wrote for President Obama back in 2011 was the WNBA championship speech when the Seattle Storm, who had won the WNBA championship in 2010, came to visit the White House. And I'll never forget it. I was in the White House watching President Obama deliver these remarks that I'd worked on. But what was so crazy to me was that, at the time, the WNBA just really was not as big with my friends and my family and in the popular culture. Like, a lot of my friends didn't know that the Seattle Storm were a team. And now when you look back at and contrast that, because Gevin, you and I, like, we were there, and we talk in the interview in a little bit about how we were in the White House and working with the vice president when the LSU Lady Tigers won the national women's college basketball championship. And so to see the progression and how much women's basketball has grown in popularity in the last 13, 14, 15 years is really wild. And, good for them. The New York Liberty won last year, and they're trying to repeat this year. They were the first New York sports team in quite a while to win a championship, which I took great pleasure in. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the season plays out, but I think the WNBA is going to continue to get some more eyeballs, get some more viewers, and really break into the mainstream this year.
As they should, honestly. I mean, they have such a great product and such talented players. And, I'm in New York for the summer. I'll tell you, Dave, one of my bucket list items for this summer is to go see the New York Liberty play in person. I think it would just be incredible.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've heard that environment's great. I'm bummed that Boston doesn't have a team yet. And I say, right. I hope that they will. There's the Connecticut Sun, who play at Mohegan Sun, but that's like an hour and a half, 2 hours from Boston. So, anyway, fingers crossed.
That's okay. You can't have everything that we have in Atlanta. Shout out Atlanta Dream.
6 Super Bowls? Sorry. I got confused for a second. I thought you were talking about the Patriots.
I was just talking about the fact that you have a WNBA team since you went there, but
and then in the NHL, it looks like there's going to be a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers, and that was an incredible series last year. The Panthers won the first 3 games. The Oilers won the next 3 games. And then the Panthers ended up taking it in 7. But no Canadian team has won a Stanley Cup in decades. There's been this huge drought. And so if there is, who knows, but if there is a rematch, I think that would be really exciting again, and would be a great series. But it's weird for me because Brad Marchand, who was on the Bruins forever, is on the Panthers this year, and it's they traded him midseason, and it's just been a little. It still looks wrong. It was a little bit like Brady going to the Bucks.
The Bucks.
It's just it's just a little
going to the Broncos.
Anyway, yeah, right, exactly. All right, so let's get into some NFL.
Let's do it. All right. So, Dave, moving on to the NFL, lots to talk about. I know we got a fun game planned, but before we get to that, some sad news in the NFL world over these past couple weeks. So we found out last week that beloved Colts owner Jim Irsay passed away at the age of 65. And if you've been listening to Lowlights, you've probably heard me mention at least once before that although I grew up in Atlanta and Atlanta's home, I was born in Indianapolis. Once a Hoosier, always a Hoosier. Been saying that a lot, especially during this Knicks Pacers series.
Don't pretend. You can't just do that. As a Hawks fan, you can't just all of a sudden be like, oh, no. Now actually I'm a Pacers fan.
This is prime bandwagon time, Dave. I'm not even distancing myself from that. I'm fully owning the bandwagon fan status right now.
I'm not here for it.
But being from Indianapolis, I grew up, the first team that I cheered for ever, any professional sports team, was the Indianapolis Colts. And so I know the impact that Jim Irsay had on the city of Indianapolis, not only through what he did as the owner of the Colts. I mean, his dad owned the team. It's actually a funny story of how his dad acquired the team, bought the Rams, I think it was, and then swapped franchises with the owner of the Baltimore Colts. And then, as a lot of people know, moved the team from Baltimore to Indianapolis. And Jim Irsay was essentially running the Colts from when he was in his 30s, which is just hard to imagine.
Even younger. Like he said, when he was 24, he
Right.
became the general manager of
Yeah.
the then Indianapolis Colts, which is crazy to think about. Like,
That's crazy. I
a
mean, he grew up, right.
24-year-old.
No, but even before he was 24, I mean, he grew up around the team. He grew up in the locker room. He grew up on the field.
That's wild.
His whole DNA, nature and nurture,
Right.
was the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, he literally bled blue. But, I think if you just look at the tributes that former Indianapolis Colts players, Peyton Manning, Dwight Freeney, Edgerrin James, Reggie Wayne, these incredible greats, the tributes that they've been showing Jim Irsay over the past few days. I mean, I think it just goes to show the impact that Mr. Irsay had, not only on the city of Indianapolis, but on the players who played for him. And I think in this area, you have a lot of owners who treat their players, who treat their teams very transactionally, right? Like as assets, and aren't afraid to just, trade, whoever to whatever team with really no love there. But I think, having never met the man myself, I think it's clear just through hearing and reading the reflections and the tributes that have been pouring in from so many former Colts players. That's on how Jim Irsay operated. And what I think is especially cool about Jim Irsay is that he not only had a ton of money, which he did, but he spent a lot of his money really trying to better the Indianapolis community, whether it was donating to different organizations, but also he was a huge music lover and would just buy up all of these incredible, one-of-a-kind, limited edition music memorabilia. He had John Lennon's piano and all these incredible, antiques, musical antiques that he would take on tour around the country, not just so he could enjoy them, but so that regular people could come and see, all of the amazing, collectibles that he accrued, through his life. And actually, when he brought his collection to DC, I wasn't working for the NFL at the time, but they kept inviting me to stuff, which was great. So Monica and I it was one of the first fun dates that Monica and I went on. I took her to this reception, and it's hosted by Jim Irsay, and he had a band, and not only did we walk around and sort of see all of the amazing items that he had had on display, including Jackie Robinson's baseball bat, so not just music stuff, but sports and all that. But he ended the night by performing, what's the name of the song? Knock, knock. The song that goes knocking on heaven's door. I don't know the exact. Yeah. But he was sitting up there, had his shades on, had the mic in his hand, and he and his band brought the house down. And I went back and I watched that video the other night after it was announced that he had passed away, and it was really emotional. Jim Irsay was really a special guy. Did a lot, like I said, for the city of Indianapolis. And just was a stand-up guy in terms of how he treated his players, and the impact that he had in the league, I think, is going to be felt for a really long time. So
yeah, I mean, it's as a Patriots fan, I was not a big Jim Irsay fan in that era. But honestly, as I look back on it, even being a part of it at the time, I mean, I think during the rivalry it was so intense. But looking back on it, the Patriots and the Colts in the 2000s felt very much like, my understanding is, the Celtics and the Lakers felt in the 80s, where it was just two all-time greats quarterbacks, two great franchises just going back and forth and always meeting each other in the playoffs and their regular
AFC
season
championship
games. Right,
it was either the Colts, the Pats, the Ravens, or the Steelers,
Exactly. Every year, right?
Every single year.
Yeah. And so anyway, it does sound like he had a real, I mean, I know he had some personal demons. Jim Irsay did, and battled substance use and all that. But that also as a human being and as a man, it sounds like he really did his best to look out for people, take them under his wing. And leaves behind a really impressive legacy. So, all right. Well, sticking with the NFL, Gevin.
Yes.
So our favorite Twitter NFL bro, Dove. So I'm Jewish. I should know. I had always thought his name was Kleinman because I've seen that name before. I know people with that name, and I just skipped over it. But his name is actually Kleiman. There's no N.
Okay.
So I think it's Dove Kleeman.
And are we sure that it's Dove? Is it Dove? Is it Dove?
I would say Dove. I mean,
Dove?
Okay. Yes, because I know people who are named Dove.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
again, there's a lot of like, I know people from Israel, I know people in America who are named
Sure.
Dove, but
Yeah.
like, okay, so our favorite bro, he shared, what it has a FanDuel logo on it. So I think it might be produced by FanDuel. It doesn't say where it's from. But it's each NFL team's GOAT. So it lists every NFL franchise and it lists the one player next. And it doesn't say how they arrived at the ranking, but so there's a few that like I'm not going to ask you because like we all know what they're going to be, like the Saints, Drew Brees, the Patriots, the GOAT,
Matthew
Tom
Slater.
Brady. Right, exactly. And there's a few like this is actually a pretty good list. I hope for people watching on YouTube, I hope we can like put up the list on the screen. But like, you know, there's a few that are like good callbacks, like the Bengals. It's Anthony Munoz, one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time. Like, good shout out there.
Yeah.
But there's a couple that I wanted to ask you about, Gevin, because I think that like just quickly, I'll ask you for a couple franchises because I think the answers are interesting. So for the Green Bay Packers, who do you think is listed as their GOAT, greatest of all time in franchise history?
I mean, if you ask someone today, I feel like most guys would say like Aaron Rodgers, but I'm going to say, did he go with like Bart Starr, who I think probably deserves it?
Yeah. So exactly. They went with Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, interesting.
And look, like Aaron Rodgers, incredible quarterback. He's had
one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
One of the best quarterbacks ever.
Yeah.
But like Bart Starr, if you go back in Packers history, he won 3 NFL championships, 2 Super Bowls.
2 Super Bowls, 5 championships.
And the Packers and Vince Lombardi basically invented the modern NFL.
Right.
The idea of picking, I mean, Aaron Rodgers took the Packers to 1 Super Bowl. Tom Brady has as many NFC championship wins as Aaron Rodgers. So to me, NFC championship. NFC championship
and spend
wins.
like an ounce of the time in the NFC that Aaron Rodgers has spent.
I don't know. Anyway, I found that to be a weird choice. And then, same with the Rams. Who do you think for the LA/St. Louis/LA Rams was picked as the franchise's all-time GOAT?
I don't know. Kurt Warner?
Good guess.
I don't know.
Honestly, I think that would almost be a little bit more.
Corey Holt, Marshall Faulk. I don't know.
No, these are all good guesses. They went with Aaron Donald.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
of the LA era, I get like of the modern LA era, but if we're talking,
look, Aaron Donald,
Rams,
defensive lineman, an incredible player. I mean, absolutely wrecking ball for a few years there. And they don't win that Super Bowl without him in 2021. But like if you just spend a little bit of time looking at Rams history, I would say Deacon Jones invented modern defensive line play. Like he was, when you look at like those like NFL 100 lists, almost all of them will have Deacon Jones in like the top 20, if not the top 10 for all-time players. Just because there's an argument that he's one of the greatest defensive players in the history of the NFL.
Of all time. Yeah,
and,
100%.
I mean, his stats, awards. I mean, he was just unbelievable. He was called the Secretary of Defense. And so, like, anyway, I think
you can make a Marshall Faulk argument on the other side.
Oh yeah, you could make. I mean, look, he was a great player. Marshall Faulk was back in the late '90s, 2000s, with your Colts, and then with and then with the Rams. But like, I get these lists because they're fun. Like everybody likes, they're engaged in farming, I think, but they're fun because they are fun. It's like inevitable that you want to argue about it. But I also think these days, like, especially in the social media era, it's a good opportunity to actually like educate some of the young kids who might be looking at this list and like when they see somebody like Bill Russell on an all-time Celtics list, they're like, oh, Bill Russell, he played in the 50s and 60s, crushed by guys today. And it's an opportunity to be like, oh, actually, like Bill Russell retired with more rings, championship rings than fingers because he won 11 titles. And like Bill Russell, to this day, any player who's ever seen him on film would agree is like one of the greatest defensive centers in the history of basketball. And like, you know, anyway, so I just thought that was interesting. Okay, but last one.
Okay.
Last one. Who do you think they picked for your Atlanta Falcons.
Julio?
Good guess. No. Who was throwing him the ball?
Okay, Matty Ice.
Matty Ice. Yeah, they picked Matty Ice, which, I mean...
Hey, NFL MVP. Yeah.
Right. I mean, look, I think you could make an argument there for maybe like Deion Sanders, prime time, Coach Prime. Like he was like, I would say he's maybe the best cornerback in NFL history.
Dwight Freeney played for us for a little bit. He's a Hall of Famer.
But
that's
anyway.
a good question though. Like, is it best player who played? I guess, like, are we looking at specifically the time that they spent with that team?
Oh yeah,
or like their career as a whole, having played for that team.
I think you got it. If you say that franchise is good, what you're saying is, like, when you think of that franchise, what player do you think of? Right?
Okay.
So
So, so I see your argument about prime, about
to me,
not Dwight Freeney.
Matty Ice.
Okay,
all right. So that gets us into our game for the week, Gevin.
Okay, all right.
Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, Boston College alum.
That's right.
He is 8th all time on the NFL passing yards leaderboard.
Yes, he is.
Okay, he is number 8.
Yep.
62,792 yards. Can you name, Gevin, the 7 quarterbacks who are above him?
Okay.
Go.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady is number 1 on the list with 89,000 yards. Correct.
Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning is number 3 on the list.
Okay,
with
3.
71,000 yards. Correct.
Who's 2? Oh, Breeze.
Drew Brees is number 2 on the list, 80,000.
Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers is number 6. Very good. Phillip Rivers is number 6 with 63,000. Yep.
Has about that many children.
You got 4. You got 4, 5, and 7.
Big Ben.
Big Ben.
Okay.
Is number 5. Very good.
Big arm.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Big arm.
Yeah. So you got 4 and 7.
Okay. Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is number 7. You are killing.
Is he 7? Okay.
Aaron Rodgers is number 7. So you have
4.
Number 4 left, and he's how should I put this? He's in the news sometimes these days for not great reasons. His reputation's taken.
I already said Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's true. His reputation's taken.
Wait. Brett Favre.
Brett Favre is number 4 all time on the NFL yardage list.
Nice.
Man, you killed that.
Okay. Thank you.
Killed that.
Thank you.
Good job, Kevin. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. All right. So that's our game for the week.
There we go. All right. So before we introduce Rashad, Dave, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the MLB. Got your Red Sox hat on?
You know it.
As always.
As always.
And you wore it this weekend, right?
I did. I wore it to Fenway Park this weekend.
Yeah.
And I saw Rafael Devers, who, since he said he would not play first base for the Red Sox after our first baseman got injured, and Rafael Devers is our $300 million superstar. He said that and everybody was annoyed, at which point Devers has gone absolutely wild as our designated hitter. He's hitting like 400 since he said that. He had a walk-off home run against your Atlanta Braves, and then he had a walk-off in the game that I went to beat the Orioles. And people are like, I don't know, one of the things I love about baseball is there's 162 games, so you don't have to really freak out that much after the first third of the season because there's so many more games left. And people, a lot of Red Sox fans are freaking out about the season because they're only about 500, and I'm fine. I think they're going to be okay. But baseball just continues to be so good this year. And speaking of your Atlanta Braves, Gevin, so one of the league's absolute superstars, the super duper stars, even, is Ronald Acuna. So couple years ago, Ronald Acuna won league MVP in the National League because he was the first player ever to hit 40 home runs and steal 70 bases in the same season. Completely ridiculous. But he tore his ACL last year, and so he's been out for an entire year. And he came back in his first game back, Gavin.
And tell him what he did, Dave. Tell him what he did.
the first pitch that he saw, Gevin, he hit a ball that I think might have just gone by my window right now. My understanding is that ball traveled 467 feet, and it's like one of the longest home runs of the season. First pitch he saw. I think he might be good, Kevin. I'm not sure, but I think he might be good. But anyway, he like baseball's just more for people who aren't watching baseball. I just cannot emphasize enough. Like, this is the time to start watching. Like,
Yeah.
you got this kid on the Pirates, Paul Skeens, who throws 100 miles an hour every pitch. Basically, you've got Shohei Ohtani on the Dodgers, who's going to be pitching again soon and went 50-50 last year for the Dodgers. You've got Ronald Acuna back for the Braves. I mean, it's a league full of stars who are just playing at such an incredibly high level right now. It's just so much fun to watch. So anyway, that's my plug for baseball.
Thank you. And thank you for shouting out a player who's not just good, he's great. Shout out Ronald Acuna.
I'll let that pass.
Okay, so I want to introduce our guest for this week, who is Rashad King. So I think this is an incredible interview, Dave. I really enjoyed talking to Rashad. I think we could have talked to him for so much longer too. But I understand that for a lot of our listeners, you may not have heard of Rashad. And so just to say a few words about him before we get into our conversation with him, Rashad spent the past 3 years playing guard on the Northeastern Huskies, a basketball team. And this last season was really a breakout season for him. He has 1 year of eligibility left, and he decided that instead of sticking around at Northeastern, that he was going to transfer to LSU. And so he's got this amazing opportunity for him, next year to just take his play to the, even higher level. And we're both very excited, for him to do that. And, he can't be more than 21 or 22 years old. But Dave, I think you also had this same reaction, but he just has this incredible perspective on life and what it really means to be a leader, on and off the court. You'll hear him talk about his parents, both retired Air Force, the impact that his parents had on him as he traveled the world with them as a military brat. You'll hear him talk about the role that his faith has played in, sustaining him through some times of great uncertainty. And you'll hear him talk about navigating life in the Deep South as a young Black man. And that's something that, I enjoyed, especially talking to him about being from Georgia as well. Rashad is not, Rashad has lived everywhere around the world, but graduated from high school in Georgia and was born in Georgia too. So he picked a good state to call home. But I do think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. So without further ado, let's get into our interview with Rashad.
And we'll see you back here after for Spotlights.
Yes. So we're back, and we're very lucky to be joined by Rashad King as this week's guest on Lowlights. And Rashad, I was thinking about this beforehand. I think you might simultaneously be the youngest guest and the tallest guest that we've had on this show. not to mention our first non-football player. So that's cool. And it's really an honor to have you with us. We're excited. Yeah, we're excited to get into your story and introduce you to our listeners. So if you've been listening to Lowlights, everyone out there, you know that part of what we like to do on the show is to introduce, you guys to athletes who you may not have heard of, or at least not yet. And Rashad, I think you're probably a guy who our listeners may not yet have heard of, but I've watched you play. I've seen your film. I think you're a really special player, and I think you have a really bright future in basketball. But I know at the same time the road hasn't been easy, and a big reason why we thought that you'd be a perfect guest on this show, is because I think you can speak a little bit about that. But also because by the time this interview will have aired, we will have just celebrated Memorial Day. And one thing that I know about you, Rashad, that I'd love to hear you talk more about is that you grew up as a military brat. You traveled the world with your parents and, who bravely served our country. So if you could just take us back, to where it all started when you were young, moving from state to state, country to country, what was that like? That's not something that Dave or I, or frankly, many of our listeners, I don't think they could really relate to. So, what was it like going through that? And, what did you learn about the world as you were traveling through it?
Yeah, I would definitely say it was a great experience for me. I took a lot from it. It was a lot of ups and downs, but I was thankful for it, and I wouldn't replace it with anything. So I was born in Valdosta, Georgia. And then from there, we kind of, hit the road. I went to Okinawa, Japan, stayed there for a little bit.
Wow.
I think it was 3 years. And then we moved to Italy, Aviano, Italy. Stayed there for about 2 years. And then we moved to Virginia. We stayed there a good little bit. I want to say it was 4 years, a good 4 years. We was in Hampton. I really enjoyed it there. Then we got the call. It's time to go to Alaska. So packed up with the anchors.
Not on a cruise.
No. Yeah. I mean, and to be honest, I really didn't know what to expect going to Alaska, but it was a good experience.
No, I mean, just on that, actually, Rashad, because I know some people who've grown up as military brats. Can I ask, like, what do you say when people say, like, "Oh, that's cool"? Where are you from? What do you say? How do you respond?
So if you want to be honest, it really just depends on who I'm talking to. Anybody, depending on where I'm at in the country, I kind of, I'll let them know, like, oh, I stayed here for a little bit, but my main go-to is Augusta, Georgia, because that's where I reside right now. My family and stuff is over there. So we've been set up there for quite a while now, but yeah, I mean, I kind of just, as the situation fits, I float in, so
Right.
that's kind of one of the perks I got right now.
Well, I mean, we're going to get into Georgia later, but I think you definitely picked the best state, to claim as your home state. Yeah. So I fully support you in that. As a fellow Georgian, Rashad, you picked right.
Yes,
but a follow up to all of that, though, what branch? I know your parents are retired now, but what branch? Were they in the same branch? Were they in different branches? And did they meet through their military service?
Yes,
both in the Air Force. Wow.
Yeah, they were both in the Air Force. They actually met in Turkey.
Wow.
And, they kind of, hit it off from there. My dad got stationed in Moody after Turkey, and my mom went to England, and they kind of had a long distance relationship going on, and then
wow.
Somehow, some way, my dad was able to get her down to his station base, and he proposed, and then from there on, it was the King family. So.
Wow. My girlfriend and I are about to have a long distance. Well, we've been doing long distance for the past 2 years between DC, where she has been in med school, and New Haven, Connecticut, where I've been in law school. She's about to start residency as a surgeon in LA, and I'm going to start business school in the Bay Area. So our long distance relationship will be evolving. But every time I hear about these like cross country long distance relationships, I'm like, man, we have it good compared to that.
Oh, yeah.
So
could be worse.
No, right. That's crazy.
Yeah. But I guess to talk more about your parents, I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit more about, the influence and the role that they played, sort of in your life. Because I mean, when you become a parent, right, like your entire mission becomes to keep your child safe. And, in due time, hopefully I can relate to that. Those who've served in the military know that when you take that oath, your mission is a new one. It's to keep your country safe. And, you saw them both fulfill those missions every single day. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how that impacted you, when you were young and you were traveling all these different places, did you really, I guess, fully grasp the extent of the sacrifice that they were making for you? And I don't know if you have siblings, but, if you do, for you and your siblings.
Yeah, at the time, I would say I didn't realize how big of a sacrifice it was. It kind of dawned on me as I grew up a little bit more, kind of started, being on my own a little bit. And I was like, man, like, they really went through it. They did a lot. So I'm thankful for them. But yeah, like, they were amazing during the process. Like, because moving around a lot, it's pretty big. You kind of going from house to house every 2 years. So, like, I know my mom, it was a lot on my mom and, my dad. And, I feel like they really handled it really well. It was 5 of us in the house, 3 boys.
Wow.
3 boys, 2 girls. So.
Sounds loud.
Wow. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like they did really good. As far as my dad, he really taught more of like, your words have meanings and, getting things done. I know his job required him to like really like get stuff done. Like it wasn't no procrastinating or anything like that. So I feel like that's something really that I took from him. And it kind of went through my whole life. And so, yeah, I would say those are the biggest things.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, there's so many things to ask about your childhood. But I guess I wanted to switch gears just a little bit. I mean, obviously it sounds like you really lucked out. You had this incredible, these role models, your parents, who set you on the right path. And it sounds like gave you that loving and supportive environment. But then also, now you have ended up, at least in this part of your life, playing basketball. And I'm curious how that happened. I mean, obviously now you're what, 6'6"? So in some ways, it makes sense. But I'm curious, did you choose the sport? Or do you feel like the sport sort of chose you because you are larger? And do you feel like your parents played a role in that? And were they supportive of you getting into that journey? Just tell us a little bit about that.
And in addition to the work ethic, did you also get your height from your parents too? If so, which one?
Yeah.
Or both?
I'll give him credit. My dad, he's around 6'1.5", 6'2". My mom's 5'7".
Okay.
So I kind of
okay. So they both have some height.
Yeah. So I'll give him the credit on that. But I would definitely say I chose the sport. So my dad was actually a football player. He was pretty good. He's originally from Glenville, Georgia. And he was pretty good at football. He, had a lot of records and stuff like that. But at heart, he was a basketball guy. And things didn't really work out with him in football due to grades and different things like that, which kind of forced him to go to the military. And from there, he was always working out in the gym and different things like that. And so I would go to the gym with him. So we'll go in there. He'll be working out, playing, and I'll just get up and down and just playing. He'll work me out, different things like that. And he actually started coaching my older brother, and he had a little team, and I always wanted to play with them because like I really couldn't get into organized basketball yet because I couldn't even get the ball to the rim. The only thing I could do was dribble. So yeah, I kind of started from there, and then he turned around and started coaching me, and then kind of took off from there. He was pretty much my coach, up and down all throughout, all the way up until about high school, really 8th grade, around that time, and yeah, I just kind of fell in love with it. The process of just getting better and seeing results from the work he was putting in. But I would definitely say I chose the sport. I actually had a growth spurt in high school. I didn't even know I was going to get 6'6". My dad and my mom, they always call me, the fat little guy, man. I was just short and stumpy.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Not anymore.
I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, not anymore. Well, that's like, I feel like somebody back in the day, like Dennis Rodman, like went into college at like 6'4" and came out of college at like 6'8". And that happens, that people grow.
Yeah, most definitely.
But obviously a big part of playing basketball or football or like any team sport out there is the team aspect. You were traveling so much, as you were going through your teenage playing career, I'm guessing. What was it like, I guess, having to pick up and move, going to these different places, having to, form bonds and relationships with new teammates every few years?
Yeah, I feel like it was a blessing in disguise because it helped me learn how to interact with people and all different types of people. Until this year, the longest I've been with a team was 2 years. Northeastern was the longest I've ever been with the team. I've always only done 2 years. So, the bond that I had at Northeastern, obviously was a little stronger. But yeah, it kind of helped me interact with people on a day-to-day basis. And I felt like I was prepared for it because, within the military, I got to meet new friends and I got to, I wouldn't say let go of other friends, but like, we're across the country now, so it's a little different, time zone. So, it just helped me be able to interact and move in and out of situations and different things like that. So I felt like it was a blessing in disguise, even though, didn't really build that chemistry or that bond for how long I wanted to.
Right.
But,
yeah. Well, I promised I'd get back to Georgia. So you graduated from Evans High School in Evans, Georgia, and I'm from right outside of Atlanta. So in all honesty, I had to look up Evans, Georgia. I wasn't exactly quite sure where it was in the state. So for those who are listening, it's not close to Atlanta. It's a little bit farther out. And I think one thing about our state, because I know you claim Georgia too, is that I know we're both very proud to be from there, but our state also has a very shameful history over the decades, the generations, the centuries. And I was reading about where Evans is. It's in Columbia County, and that's a county that, like many others in the state, built on slave labor. Tremendous amount of mob violence toward Black folks during Reconstruction, and even in spite of all of that, it's your home, it's your community today. For those who might not be from somewhere like Evans, Georgia, Columbia County, can you just paint a picture for us? What was it like, as a young black man growing up there, being a leader, a role model, example, repping your school on the court? What was the atmosphere like? Not only playing for Evans, but also maybe going up against some of the other schools in the area. Do you have any stories to tell about that?
I would say I kind of going into Evans, you kind of had to have a chip on your shoulder. You kind of had to walk with your chest out a little bit, to let everybody know like you're here, and you're trying to prove something. You're trying to make a difference, and I feel like that's what I kind of did when I got there. And a lot of coaches say you got to play for the team on the front, and you got to play for your name on the back. And I really felt that like kind of every day, like carrying myself, like even if it's just saying hello to my neighbor, or saying hello to the lady up the street, or even kind of walking into a gas station. I kind of always had that I'm from Evans, or this is what I gotta show. And every time someone sees me, look at me, I want to make sure I'm giving them the full Rashad King, the whole background and different things like that. So I definitely was very conscious of what how I looked and how I was perceived, and I feel like that it kind of helped me move along. And
yeah. And I wonder if part of that came from conversations or just witnessing sort of how your parents moved through the world in there. I mean, you wore your uniform or your jersey. Your parents wore uniforms of their own. I think there's this very unfortunate, legacy, deep legacy in this country of, so many Black servicemen and women not ever getting a hero's welcome, and, going and serving our country abroad, then coming back here and being treated like less than humans. And so, yeah, I wonder if sort of seeing how your parents moved through the world and so many different cities and states here and countries around the world in their uniforms, representing a country proudly and with valor and bravery, one that, didn't always show that back to them. And so, yeah, I wonder if did any of sort of how you carried yourself, during that time in your uniform sort of come from how you saw and heard about your parents describe how they navigated that themselves?
Yeah, most definitely. I would definitely say my mom and my dad, they really instilled like, it's not, don't be selfish. Don't think it's just Rashad that people are looking at. You gotta have a open mind and a bigger mind about it. It's not just you. You got your whole family. You got your friends, anybody that you pretty much came in contact with, and you don't even know that you're finna come in contact with. They're all this is all on you. So present yourself well. You don't want to be seen. First impression is a lot, and it means a lot. So they instilled that a lot. Funny thing, I used to get tired of ironing my clothes. Every day my dad be like, man, you going out there, you embarrassing me. They gonna say I got brand new clothes now. No. I'm like, man. But he's just a little overboard with it. But
well,
definitely
it's our family.
Yeah,
right.
It's our family.
I appreciate them for that.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And so, Gevin has covered your time in Evans, and then I'm interested. So, at a certain point, you have to make your decision about where to play college ball, or where to start your college career. And I know you were strongly considering the Air Force Academy, and ultimately, I'm from Boston. I got my Red Sox hat on. So the Northeastern Huskies and the legacy of Reggie Lewis, and that program has always been really special for those of us in Boston. But what were you looking for, and what ultimately set Northeastern over the edge for you?
Yeah, so it was kind of a crazy story. So out of high school, as you know, COVID happened, and so a lot of opportunities were cut down. And
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed to be able to get a offer from Air Force Academy and Tennessee Tech, both towards the end of my senior year. And it really came down to those two. I felt like Air Force Academy had a better opportunity for me at the moment. So, I went over there and I was actually accepted into the prep school. So you have the prep school and then you have the real academy. So I went to the prep school, and it was basically like a trial run. I went through the basic training and I had to, basically learn how to be into the military. And it just didn't end up working out. I played the season, and then I ended up leaving and going to UMKC, Missouri, Kansas City. And I signed with them, and everything was going good. And then lo and behold, the coach gets fired. So everybody has to shake down the roster. You know how that goes in college basketball. And so I was kind of stuck. And Coach Cohen gave me that call. And it was pretty much like, it was my only option. And I was very blessed. So I went first. As soon as he called, I was like, yo, I'm all in. Let's do it. Like, I'm here for it because, like you said, Northeastern is really reputable, and, they have a lot of history back there. So went over there, and, that started the journey from there. And it's pretty much how it went. And then, I stuck with the ride these past 3 years. It was 6 incoming freshmen that came in with me. And, we just, took the role.
I mean, you talk about it, and you explain it, and it makes sense when you do. But I just, this is a podcast all about overcoming setbacks and challenges and staying positive. And I just have to ask, when they're, because I think, again, this is something that most fans, when we sit at home, we don't think about. Like, when a coach gets fired at a college program, we're not sitting at home like, oh, I wonder what that's going to do to the future of the student athletes on that roster who now have to
100%.
decide whether to stay with that program or transfer. What was going through your mind when you found out that coach was that, you were going to have to encounter something totally new now, that different from what you'd expected? And how did you stay positive despite that happening and think, well, I'm going to find another opportunity will come?
Yeah. I would say, the thing that kept me most steady was my Bible. I got in there and I read, and, I prayed, and I always knew that everything was going to work itself out. I wasn't really too concerned, because at the end of the day, things are going to work itself out. Things happen for a reason, and I felt like this was all kind of planned for me to be able to overcome things. I was in there as soon as I got the news. I was like, man, all right, like, what's next? What do I have to do to put myself in a position to make sure I'm going to be all right? I'm going to be good. And so whatever it was, if I needed to uh, go find the next coach's number, keep tabs on whatever the case is with the school, and maybe talk to admissions or something to make sure there was no possible way that I couldn't, miss an opportunity. And doing both of those and combining them pretty much, I knew I was going to be all right. Whether the situation ended up there or there, wherever I was going to land at, I felt like, betting on myself and, in my faith, I can't go wrong with that. So I felt, I wouldn't say I was highly nervous, but I was just ready to go, ready to strike wherever my next move was going to go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, amen to that.
Yes,
I think clearly things have worked out for you so far. I mean, Rashad, you've been just absolutely lighting it up at Northeastern, especially this past season. I mean, this was so far, like, I think your breakout season in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, you got named Conference Player of the Week back in December. You played a great season before that, but you doubled your points per game from, the prior season to this last one. And in a lot of ways, I think people who maybe were overlooking you before, or, maybe to the extent that you were flying under the radar before, you're here, right? And so what do you think helped you go from, again, playing at a very high level before this past season, step up your game even more?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's the consistency and the work and the dedication and being disciplined. Coming in, I would say I would like to give a big shout out to Jamil Telford out of Butler. He really kind of set the standard of what it's supposed to be like, how college was. Cause, I never really had that experience. So coming in as a freshman, I've kind of seen him, getting training, how often he's in the gym, different things like that, and how the success led to him and led for him. So I was like, all right, like that's the blueprint I got to figure out, fix my schedule, fix how I sleep, whatever it is, I got to match that and some. So it took me a few years, but I got into the routine and I started getting things going and just being consistent, because you can go out there and you can shoot 1,000 shots one day, but if you're not constantly shooting and constantly working out trying to perfect your craft, you're not gonna you're not gonna see the progress that you wanted to see. You're gonna get better, of course, but not at the rate that you want to see it. So um, I say it takes a lot of discipline to do that, especially in college. And consistency and discipline, I feel like that will push you and take you as far as you need to in your want and belief. So I used all of those, and it really helped me out over the past couple of years.
Yeah, it sounds just like a story about no shortcuts. It's just a hard work.
Right.
I mean, it's all, so often, Gevin and I, we know that, when people say, and I'm sure you hear this too, when people say like, oh, how do you end up working in the White House? How do you end up, being a great basketball player? Like, you might end up seeing LeBron or, Steph Curry or whoever taking shots in the NBA finals. What you don't see are the mornings where they woke up at 5:30 a.m. to go get in that extra work at the gym, or those mornings where they, went into the film room and did an extra hour of prep for the series or whatever. And that, I think, is what I tell people you're often seeing when you actually watch the game. You're seeing just the tip of the iceberg, just what's above the water. What you're not seeing is all the work that made it happen. And it sounds like that's what you did in your case, to make your story so successful at Northeastern, and now for those watching on YouTube, they can see that you're repping LSU, and so you're in a new place. And look, I think some of the people who are listening to us or watching us, Rashad, might not be all that familiar with the transfer portal and the NIL system. And I was just wondering, could you take us through a little bit of that? Like, what was that like for you as a player? Like, how did you decide that it made sense for you at this stage in your career to transfer to LSU? And what's that process like as a player?
Yeah. So kind of going through it, I didn't really want to hear any of that going through the season. I felt like we had a really good team and we should have, performed better than what we did. So I kind of made it my mission, like I really believe that we should have, been in March Madness. We should have won the tournament. We had enough talent to do it, but it didn't work out. So kind of as soon as the season ended, I sat down and I wrote down my wants, what I want to do with my career, my life, and different things like that. And then I started kind of going, and my dad and Coach Matt Jennings, he kind of told me to write down a T table, pretty much of the pros and cons of how everything lines up, and whichever side has more tally marks and more check marks. I feel like you need to give it an opportunity, give it a chance. And so, hitting the transfer portal was my biggest. It had the most tally. So I feel like after the season I had, I should give myself an opportunity to hear what's out there for my development and to get me better. And the NIL space is kind of crazy this past couple of years. A lot of things are getting thrown at kids, and it's kind of hard to navigate through. So I signed with Priority Sports, and they kind of really helped me navigate through that. And I share with them my wants and my needs, and we kind of went from there. But I was mainly focused on my player development. I really feel like I have a really good chance of going pro, and so that's what my goals were from the jump. Whoever's going to give me the best, whoever's going to help me become the best player and person and man, that's where I was going to go, whether that be Northeastern or LSU. And so that kind of was my lead going into it. And LSU they filled all those check marks that I was looking for. So I felt like it was a perfect opportunity. So I capitalized.
So, Rashad, you've got this huge opportunity, obviously transferring to LSU. I mean, it's a storied franchise. It's an SEC school. SEC, for those who don't know, that's one of the big sort of powerful conferences in college sports, the Southeastern Conference. You got your Alabama, UGA, and LSU, and many other, very just some of the most famous, I feel like, and storied college sports programs across sports. So there's a huge opportunity for you, Rashad, and you've worked very hard for it. You've earned it. You deserve it. And we're so proud of you, for getting it. The team's been to the Final Four, a few times throughout the years. I guess, how are you thinking about this transition? You talked a little bit about why you decided on LSU, but with this huge opportunity you have in front of you, how are you sort of managing all of the emotions, all of I'm sure there's some nervousness, anxiety. You're obviously ready for this moment, but a lot of eyeballs are going to be on you. So I guess, how are you processing all this? How are you managing this? How are you preparing yourself for this next step in this journey for yourself?
Yeah, I would say I'm doing the same thing I've always done. Going back to my faith and my work and dedication and discipline. I just feel like everything has to get turned up a couple of notches. And I feel like that's life. Whenever you making another move, a bigger move, whatever you was kind of doing, you could take the basics, but you got to turn it up a little bit. You gotta be more intense with it. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm in the gym more than ever. I'm in my Bible more than ever, and I'm just getting obsessed with getting better every single day, and it's helping me out. I'm enjoying life. So I mean, I got no complaints. As far as like the anxiety and different things like that, I feel like it'll come and go. Everybody we're human, and everybody has emotions and different things like that, but I lean on to my core values, and it's been working for me ever since up to now. So I have faith that I'll be all right. I'm not. I'll think it'll be too much.
It's worked for you so far, and I was just thinking about the fact that Gevin and I were working in the White House when the LSU Lady Tigers ended up
Angel Reese
and coming to the White House.
Oh yeah,
that's right, because they were the national champions that year. I think it was 2023. And so you got a huge legacy to live up to down at LSU. You got
I remember seeing Angel Reese. It was so cool.
Oh yeah, and the Patriots just took 4th overall in the NFL draft this year. Will Campbell, who read out of the LSU football program. Jamar Chase. You got. The list of
Joe Burrow.
Oh yeah, the list of pro athletes who are really dominant in their sports coming out of LSU is really long. So hopefully the Rashad King is going to be one of the next ones to come out of LSU. But as Gevin said, such a storied program and such a testament to your hard work, as you said, and your faith, and we're definitely rooting for you. So, I think one of the things that we talk a lot about on this podcast and role models, not just on the court, not just when they're under those bright lights, but also off the court, because so many people look to them, especially in the era of social media, when you can really see people's real lives, not just who they are as athletes. And so I'd just love to hear how you're thinking about that now that you're going to be at LSU, you're going to be under those bright lights, you're going to be on national television, you're going to be a real figure that a lot of young people are looking up to. Yeah. And, you talked a little bit about this, about how when you were in high school and when you were part of your community then, you thought about that and thought about how you carried yourself and how you wanted to always represent yourself in your uniform well. How are you thinking about that at LSU? Is that any different, or is it basically just a continuation of what you've been doing your whole life?
Yeah, I feel like it's a continuation. We're just upping it up a little bit. Definitely, there's a lot more eyes on you than you always think, and that's just every day in life. And so, like I said, how you perceived and how your first impression are to a lot of people is very important. So I don't know, especially with social media nowadays, I don't know who is looking at me for the first time. And so when I see them or when they see me, I want them to understand like, who they're getting and see the full person, see everything. And so whatever I have to do to make sure that isn't, tarnished or perceived in a negative connotation, then I mean, I'm all for it. And that, I feel like that was instilled with me by my parents. It's a lot more than just Rashad King, the basketball player. You want to be known as Rashad King, a great man, a great husband, a great father, different things like that.
Great
So,
leader. Yeah.
Yeah. And, to build off of that, I mean, part of the idea of this podcast, as you know, is that Gavin and I are trying to speak to young guys, young men, people around, your age or even younger, who might be struggling and who might be going through challenges in their life. And I guess I'm curious, have you seen young guys struggle in recent years or as you were growing up? And, maybe your teammates or friends or whatever. And do you have any advice? Do you have any advice to a young guy who might be listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube and is struggling, is not sure, maybe the head coach of the team that they're about to go to just got fired or they're just having a hard time in school or whatever it is. Like, what do you have any advice for them?
yeah, I definitely seen it a lot of times, especially being at Northeastern and kind of going up, of guys kind of getting on themselves. And, it's a lot of pressure being put on a lot of these kids. And they, they're really hard on themselves. But one thing I would say is just, the days get better. Don't don't always think too much into yourself. There's a lot of people going through a lot of things that would do a lot of things to get into your position to be even where you at, just standing in the locker room. So I always want to let them know that you could be somewhere else. You can be in a different position. You could, be in a different circumstance. So always keep that in the back of your mind. And it's always not as bad as it is or as it seems. And the days will get better. I would say, whatever your religion is, go pray, speak about it, talk. Don't hold your emotions in. It's always good to go talk, even if it's if you're not as cool as what you are as your coach. Get a teammate, get a guidance counselor, somebody kind of express it in. Don't keep it in because a lot of things start forming in your brain, and it's hard to kind of get out of that. So I would say, speak about it, and the days are gonna get better. Just because you had you know 3 bad days out of the week doesn't mean you can't have another 4 good days. So uh, just always keep moving forward. You know what I mean? So that's what I did, and that's what I leaned on, and it helped me out. So
That's such good advice, Rashad. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
I wish I had a
I was gonna say
Rashad
I needed to hear that. I know, like that's a message I needed to hear. I mean, because
Totally.
I can say I want to say we all, but I can speak for myself. I deal with those feelings all the time of self-doubt, of feeling like I didn't do well enough, and I think sometimes we get so caught up in the moment and so caught up on what we may have done, that we could have done better, that we don't fully pause to recognize, what we're actually doing and like patting ourselves on the back for that. And I heard someone recently saying that the worst thing that you can do for your mental health is to compare yourself to other people. I think we all find ourselves doing that probably every single day. And so, I needed to hear, Rashad, exactly what you just said. And I would be willing to bet that a lot of our listeners at home needed to hear that as well. It's just such an important message, just and a reminder of the perspective, that we all need to have.
yes, sir. Well, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And I also, I think what you talked about as well, Rashad, in terms of finding somebody to help, and not just keeping it inside. I just wanted to emphasize that as well, because I just think so often, especially as young men, sometimes I feel like a lot of us are told like, well, take it like a man, be a man about it. And I think some guys hear that as don't ask for help when you need it. And actually I've seen from the men in my life that one of the things that you need to do is ask for help when you need it. And tell people, hey, I could use somebody to talk to about this. And so, yeah, to your point, whether it's a guidance counselor, whether it's a friend, whether it's your parents, whether it's a relative, like find somebody in your life, and let them know that you're having a hard time. And more often than not, that is going to be one of the best decisions you can make, because that person is going to help you and get you back on the right path and talk to you about what needs to be done. So I thank you again for sharing that. All right. Well, look, I feel like we could talk to you for the rest of the day. I just love hearing your perspective about basketball and life generally. But unfortunately, we have to move into our final questions. So, all right. So these are going to be lightning round questions we ask all of our guests, and I'll start with the very first one. No wrong answers. So this is, what is your favorite movie or TV show, ideally about sports, or even basketball, and it can be because you think it's really realistic, or because it's just like a fun movie that you like putting on, like, when you're having a tough time or whatever that cheers you up. Like, but what's that show or what's that movie for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say Love and Basketball is a good movie. But a show that I've been on recently is the Starting Five, or any kind of like the documentaries or the things like that on Netflix, like the Olympic one. And but the Starting Five has really been like, because I feel like you said, it's a lot more realistic. I'm kind of getting to see how the NBA players are thinking and how they're moving, and like, oh, this
Right.
player does this, or so he's up after the game doing this, that, and the third. So that kind of helps me kind of get almost like a real day in the life of the NBA player. So I've been on the Starting Five heavy, and that's been my favorite so far.
Oh, good one. Good one.
Okay, transitioning to music, Rashad. I guess we usually like to ask, like, what is it that you listen to when you're feeling down? But it doesn't have to be what you put on when you're feeling down. It could be like, I don't know, you're starting a workout, you hit play. What are you playing? Is it something from the Atlanta music scene? Is it something else? So I guess, who are your go-to artists or your favorite music to listen to when you're feeling down or, in need of a pump up?
Yeah, it really kind of goes on the flow of the day. I've lived all over the world, so I feel like my music palette is pretty diverse.
Super eclectic, huh?
Yeah,
right.
I got a little bit of everybody in there, and I have my playlist kind of set for that. So like, if I'm waking up in a I don't know, Atlanta scene, I'll play that a little bit, but I also, can be on my Cali vibe in the morning. It really just depends on how I'm feeling that morning. But I like to listen to
Or like German opera music, or some
right.
Turkish, some Turkish whatever, maybe some K-pop.
Yeah, man. I listen to everything, but something like, if I'm having a neutral day, or like I'm just very like monotone, or I'll throw on some Bob Marley or some Lauryn Hill.
Okay.
Kind of like, all right, here we go. We in the zone a little bit, and then it just kind of changed throughout the day.
Yeah, chill vibe. I like that.
Now you're speaking my language. I'm Jamaican, Rashad.
All right.
Yeah.
I just close my eyes when I put on some Bob Marley and pretend like I'm on the beach in Montego Bay, with the pina colada in my hand and a plate of jerk chicken and rice and peas.
Is that what you're doing? Like when your eyes were closed, when it was February in DC and snowing outside, and your eyes would be closed. Maybe that's what you were picturing. Somewhere a lot warmer. Maybe that makes sense. Okay, and then, well, speaking
of food,
speaking of jerk chicken, so what's again, it's usually comfort food, but it can be pregame meal or whatever. But you've lived all over the world, so I imagine you've had the chance to try a lot of incredible food, Rashad. Like, what's that comfort food? Like, what's the food that you look forward to every time you eat it?
I would definitely say my go-to is honey hot wings, 10-piece honey hot wing. I can't go wrong at any point in the day with that. But I would say, from my time in Alaska, spam musubi, top tier.
What?
Spam musubi is so good.
I have no idea what that is.
You gotta try them. We just put you on.
I was with you on the wings, and then you
no,
you have to go to Alaska.
Delicious. No, people who don't like spam, it's because they haven't had it cooked right. I think, like, spam musubi.
I've had spam, but what is this that you're talking about? Spam what?
It almost looks like sushi, right, Rashad? It's like, it's got rice, and then it's got the spam on top,
rice, egg, a little sauce, and it's wrapped in seaweed. You can get them kind of. You can get them kind of small rectangles, or my friend Samson. he used to make them like foot longs, like almost like a Subway sandwich. So,
Oh.
yeah, I'll get it like that. I'm trying to tell you, I was a no-go. I wasn't one of those guys for a couple of years, and then I just tried it one day, and I'm trying to tell you, it will change your life.
No, it's
I'm
amazing.
like, with
It's
all
so
the
good.
with all the actual fresh fish they have in Alaska, why are they cooking spam?
No,
It's so good. It's so good.
No, I'm here. Yes, I
Huh.
can agree. I can attest. It is
Okay.
fantastic. You could put avocado on it. You can, I mean, you can mix it up depending on where you are and what kind of flavor you want on it. But it's so good, so good. Yeah.
It is. It is.
I'll try everything at least once. I'm gonna have to get the spelling from you guys after this, and I'll Google it and see what we're dealing with here. Rashad, our time with you has unfortunately come to an end. And like Dave said, I think the two of us could talk to you for much longer. But we're just so grateful that you took this time today to talk to us and to talk to our listeners. I mean, I'm confident. Yeah, I'm confident, Rashad, that in a few years, our listeners are not only just going to know your name, but I think the whole world is going to know your name. And obviously a part of that's going to be because of what, you'll be doing on the court. And I believe you're going to accomplish your dreams on the court, but I think people are going to know you more for what you've done and what you continue to do off the court. The example that you demonstrate, how you live your life, how you treat other people, and how you show the world what it means to really be not only just a basketball player, but to use your words, a husband, a father, a leader, a role model, and a man. And we're both so proud of you and very excited to see, what these next few years have in store. So best of luck at LSU next year. Just best of luck down the road.
Yes, sir. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. Really appreciate you guys for having me on.
All right, and we're back for some spotlights. What an awesome interview, Dave. Rashad is just such, an incredible, dare I say, young man. He's definitely young. I would say, I think it's a little bit dicey for you, Dave, but I think he and I can say he's just an incredible fellow young man. Someone who, is just crushing it on the court and in the classroom. And just has his head on his shoulders. And I think it's for that reason, that I know that he'll continue to do just incredible things, not only as a basketball player, but as a leader, and one day I'm sure as a husband, as a father, if he chooses to become one. And, I think the first thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about, one of my, reflections on our conversation with Rashad, really goes to one of the core reasons why we wanted to talk to him, especially this week. And I mentioned this during the interview, but, we just celebrated Memorial Day, and, Rashad comes from this incredible military family. Both his parents, retired, Air Force, members. And, we know that whether it's in his family or the countless other families, with a service, member, that it's not just a service member who serves. And, I think something that a lot of us do think about, for you and I, we don't have the experience of being, a part of, an immediate service member family. But, I think we think a lot about it. I think we talk a lot about sort of in the broader conversation around, military service that, military brats have a very challenging, life, right? Having to travel around, pick up and leave, every couple years, travel from one state to another, or in some cases, like in Rashad's case, from one country to another. But I don't think I really ever fully thought about sort of the implications of that when a military brat is involved in something like sports. He told us candidly during our conversation with him that, these past 3 years at Northeastern was the longest stretch of time that he's ever spent with the same set of teammates, because prior to that, it was every 2 years he was picking up and moving somewhere else. And I can't imagine the sort of impact that had. We talk about a sport like basketball, which at its core is a team sport. And, there's got to be chemistry. There's got to be trust between, yourself and your players, your fellow players, your teammates, your coaches. And so to think about and to hear Rashad talk about how, that impacted, him every few years, having to pick up and move and reestablish that chemistry, that connectivity with his teammates, a new set of teammates, a new, set of coaches. despite all of that, the successes that he's had in, every year just stepping up and elevating his game to a higher and higher level up until, where he was this past year, it's really incredible to think about. And, I think it's worth just, again, when you meet someone who may not have served themselves, but, came from a family where one or both of their parents may have served bravely, as heroes, to not only, express gratitude toward their parents, but also express gratitude toward them because they made a sacrifice too. They may not have willingly said, all right, I want to, protect the country and the armed forces, but whether they, made that decision or not, through being a part of that family and having parents who did really sacrifice on behalf of our nation as well. And so I think that's a perspective that I got from our conversation with Rashad, and one that I definitely want to carry forward. So if you're listening out there and, you come from a military family, you're a military brat yourself, thank you for the sacrifice that you've made. Thank you to your parents for the sacrifice that they've made as well. And, know that this Memorial Day weekend and every weekend, we owe you everything. And, I do think that one of our core sacred obligations as a country is to take care of our veterans. I don't mean to sound like a politician here on the stump, but it is so true. It is so true that we owe our veterans, their families, their children a great debt of gratitude. And so thank you to all of you out there who might be veterans or children of veterans for your sacrifice.
Yeah. And, I'll just add, I think Memorial Day, I know from a lot of my friends, your friends, we both know a lot of people who have served. Memorial Day is a hard day for a lot of them. It's a day when they think a lot about people who aren't here, who should be. And the saying that they always use in the military is all gave some gave all. And whether it's, friend Jose, who used to serve in the Marines, our friend Ben, so many others who do have so many stories about these incredible people that they served with, who tragically are not with us. I think it's a really special thing that we do as a country every year to pause and reflect on that service and on that sacrifice that was made on our behalf. And to your point, Gevin, so many of the people that we work for and what we've done in our careers is try in part in the office that we worked in to try to serve veterans as well as they serve this country. That was huge for Mrs. Obama when I worked with her. I got to tour a submarine at one point with her, which was incredible. But she had a whole program to serve military families. And so it's not even political. It's not, partisan, in other words. Like, it's not something that somebody who's a Republican should not support, or somebody who's a Democrat should support. I think as Americans, we should all support a lot of the work that we did on those issues, like, making sure that when people are moving around, to your point about how everybody in the military family is serving the country, licenses for a military spouse, sometimes they don't transfer from one state to another. So you've got a whole extra layer of complication when you're in Georgia and then you're transferred to Alaska. Well, what about your spouse who might be a therapist or an attorney or a doctor, who now needs to go through that certification all over again, to move with you? Again, to your point, Gavin, that's service. That is sacrifice on behalf of this country so that their spouse can serve. And so, yeah, I'm thinking about the people who made that who gave that last full measure of devotion, who aren't with us anymore. And I'm also thinking about everybody who serves and has sacrificed for our country and for its freedom. So, so in addition to that, another thing I wanted to get into a little bit with this interview, Gavin, is just, you mentioned at the beginning, this is the tallest guest that we've ever had on Lowlights. But he's also the youngest guest that we've ever had on Lowlights. And I was just really struck because it's one thing when you're watching March Madness, when you're watching college football, when you're watching these young athletes compete. It's one thing to know in the back of your mind, like, oh yeah, these are young kids. These are young men. These are and women. These are people who are 19, 20, 21 years old. But it's another to talk to somebody like Rashad, and he's incredible, as you said. I mean, he's clearly got a good head on his shoulders, clearly is a young leader. But at such a young age, he's going to be on our television screens, hopefully, playing with LSU this season, and then in March Madness. And I think for me, it just was a reminder that especially as fans at home, we should extend a little bit of grace to really young athletes who are competing on these world stages or on these national stages, in front of an audience of millions, and understand that they really are at the beginning of their career in many cases, hopefully, because a lot of them are hoping to make it to the pro leagues after this. And, to just understand as well for the young people who are listening, as Rashad said, there really are no shortcuts. Like, you just got to get in the gym and work. You got to get in the, on the court and work. You got to just, and I get in the classroom and work too, because if your grades aren't up to snuff, you won't be able to compete, because you got to maintain a certain GPA. So I think it was an outstanding role model, for young people who are thinking, I want to be an athlete, I want to go to college, I want to play sports, and also just a good reminder to everybody who listens to us, that these are young people, who really have a lot of weight on their shoulders that they're carrying when they go out and represent their schools on the court. So really impressive guy.
Definitely. I think we both will be, keeping our eyes out for Rashad over this next year. Like you said, wouldn't be surprised if he's on TVs everywhere this season, especially during March Madness. So, we'll both be cheering for him. And, to all of y'all who now know about Rashad, make sure you cheer for him as well. But no, this was a fun one, Dave. This was a really incredible interview. A great episode. If you also enjoyed it, please share it with your friends. Leave a comment. Hopefully it's a positive comment. give us a thumbs up. Give us 5 stars, whatever platform you're listening or watching on. We're just so grateful for your support. And we're excited to see you back here next week.
All right. See you, everybody.
Bye.